Hi, I'm Susan Lewis from WRTI, and I'm here with Rollo Dilworth, composer, conductor, educator. He's conducted close to 60 choirs, state, regional, and national choirs, as well as choirs in different parts of the world. He has over 150 publications and arrangements, 3 books of choral warm-up exercises, a variety of videos. He's now professor of choral music education at Boyer College of Music and Dance and vice dean at Temple's Center for Performing and Cinematic Arts, as well as the artist in residence at the Mendelssohn Club.
Hello, Susan. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be a part of this series and looking forward to having a great chat with you.
Could you talk a little bit first about your path in music? I understand you were born and raised in St. Louis and fell in love with singing at a very early age.
Yeah, well, thanks for that question. I really had an amazing musical experience as a child growing up, and I really didn't realize that until I became an adult. As you mentioned, I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. I had amazing elementary and middle school and high school musical experiences, both vocal and piano. I had great teachers, particularly at the elementary level, choral teacher and piano teacher who instilled in me a love and a respect for music. And I was being trained classically as a classical musician, but also to play gospel and jazz styles. And I had the best of both worlds growing up as a kid. And I think it's because of the wonderful influence and impact that these teachers had on me that I wanted to be a music educator myself.
Are there musicians in your family?
No, interestingly enough, I'm the only one who moved down this path, and no musicians in the family, and so I sort of had to forge my own path, but certainly got lots of support from my family members.
So, is it right that while you loved singing, even as young as 11, you started playing around with arranging?
I did, and it was really, Susan, out of curiosity, I think that I began to arrange. I would, I was a nerdy little music kid, so I would take my music home from choir rehearsal and sit it, on the piano, and I would practice my part, and I would practice everybody else's vocal part as well, out of curiosity, and I would start changing pitches, changing rhythms, changing chords, and sometimes even changing the text, and I would scribble down my ideas and take them back to choir rehearsal to the teacher and ask her, "Can we try it this way?" She said to me one day, "You could really move forward as an arranger and as a composer," and I really didn't quite know what that was at that time, but I began to study other composers and realize and arrangers and realize, okay, well, maybe I can do this. And so things began to take off really when I started teaching middle school because I had to create arrangements that would help my singers to be successful based on where they were in their vocal development. Voices are changing, and that's when I really started to maybe sort of hone the craft, if you will. And I've been really fortunate that I've been able to continue doing this work because it gives me lots of joy.
Are there any particular pieces of music that you remember really turning you on to music, to choral music?
Yeah, I think certainly um, Handel's Messiah, the Hallelujah chorus, that was a big deal, when you're a young kid, being able to sing a piece like that. Then also the Beethoven Hallelujah from Mount of Olives, so I was singing pieces like that. I was singing well arranged pieces like the Lift Every Voice and Sing, arranged by Roland Carter.
Well, it's interesting. You went to Case Western University in Cleveland as an undergrad, and then, as you mentioned, middle school. You taught middle school for a while, and you were drawn to middle school. Middle school is a tough age on many different levels.
Yeah, it really is. And I have to tell you, Susan, I think it was because I could really identify with the vocal transition, with the kind of social challenges that middle schoolers face, the sort of physical and intellectual challenges of one moment you're feeling like you're a child, and one moment you're feeling like you want to be more of an adult. And so I really felt like that was an age group that I really resonated with, and particularly when it came to vocal music, I was wanting to be of help, to keep students interested in singing, knowing that their voices were going to be in transition. So that was exciting for me.
So uh, after you taught middle school for a while, you went back to graduate school at
Yes.
University of Missouri at St. Louis for composition and arrangement, and then Northwestern for conducting. So what brought you to Temple?
So Temple University, that's an interesting story because I thought sure I would continue my career in the Midwest, particularly the Chicago area. It was Alan Harler who actually recruited me and encouraged me to apply for this choral music education position. That was back in 2008. I applied 2009, early 2009. I was offered the position. So it's been a number of years now for me here in the Philadelphia area at Temple.
So in recent years, you've just been juggling teaching and conducting and composing and arranging. What was going on in your life back in March 2020 when everything shut down?
Well, I remember the early weeks of March, and I remember the ACDA, American Choral Directors Association Eastern Division Convention. We were up in Rochester, New York, and at that point, we had gotten word that there was some sort of contagious virus moving around the country, and ACDA conferences, it's like family homecoming, and people want to hug each other, people want to gather. And I remember walking into the hotel and seeing people that I knew, and rather than greeting them, we were elbow bumping each other and kind of fist bumping each other. I don't think any of us, including myself, had any idea what was to come very shortly thereafter.
So did you get home before everything shut down?
I did. There was one more week, actually, but we had been warned by Temple University and certainly by health officials that things were about to change.
Right. So how did things change for you personally in late March and April? How did it affect your daily routine?
So instead of working on campus every day, I've been working from my home.
What room are you in right now?
So I'm in the basement of my home, and it's my home studio,
Cool.
my home
And
office.
you have some things on your shelf that looks like a bowl. I know you've traveled a lot. Are they
Yes, and so that object that looks like a bowl is just a little piece of artwork that I got from somewhere in my travels. I can't quite remember, but I also have you'll see back there. There's a little hand drum that I have back there, and there's also a shake ray. There actually I think two shake rays, one little smaller gourd and one a larger one from Africa. And I really enjoy those instruments because I often will incorporate them here and there, particularly a drum, into some of my music.
Oh, that's really interesting. Any piece in particular that uses that?
I have a piece that is entitled "The Dream Keeper" that involves a little hand drum, and it's a Langston Hughes poem. So the piece begins with a little groove on the piano, and then the drum taps da, da, da. So I've got a few pieces with those little drum taps in them, and so that comes in handy a lot because I put it down in front of me and I'm tapping out rhythms and writing them on the page. And it's been really interesting just doing everything on Zoom, and because I live alone, I've my only contacts, or most of my contacts with people are on a screen. It's given me an opportunity, now that I'm not traveling at all, to really focus more on my teaching, on my writing, on my my scholarly writing, but also on my composing writing. And I think I've been fairly productive. I've been able to have conference sessions and guest lectures with other institutions via Zoom, and it's really helped me to focus, I think, a lot more on what my purpose is with the work that I'm trying to do.
I'm glad you brought that up because what is your purpose? You do seem very mission driven.
Yeah, I think that my my work has always been, I think, mission driven, and it could be just the upbringing I had. I was born and raised through the Catholic education system that always taught us that, you know, the talents and the abilities that we have should serve a greater purpose beyond, you know, ourselves and our own sort of egos. And so I've always sort of felt that my work, particularly as an educator and as a composer, um, has been to elevate the voices of the voiceless. So much of my music points to issues related to social justice and you know, African American spirituals, and setting the texts of great orators like a W.E.B. Du Bois in Credo, or the wonderful prose of Langston Hughes, as in my Rain sequence. And these voices certainly spoke to people of their day, but I believe that these words continue to have relevance and meaning in our society, in our world, in the present. And my goal is to amplify those voices and to help us to understand how we can not only learn from the past, but how much it really relates to our present and how it can ultimately affect how we move forward into the future.
I was struck by a comment that you made in one of the videos about using music to help people understand the world.
Music is a window into the world around us. It can teach us more about ourselves, but also teach us more about the people around us. And there is no culture in society, to my knowledge, past or present, that does not have music as part of its uh, core values, and in terms of how it identifies itself, in terms of how it expresses itself. And so I think that music can tell us a lot about who we are and who others are. And in the process, I think music can teach us how to engage others who may be different from us. And that opportunity to expand one's worldview through studying and performing music, particularly music that doesn't represent our own culture, is a wonderful tool and a wonderful gateway um, to build mutual understanding, and for us to not be so fearful of someone who doesn't look like us, or who doesn't worship like us, or who doesn't think like us. So I try to teach that lesson to young people through the music, as well as people who may not be so young. I think there's something for all of us to learn.
Right. So why do you think music has that ability to reach people who are different from us? Is it because we all have sort of an emotional response to this kind of to music in general?
I think so. I think um, music resonates with every human being. Now, we all have different, you know, tastes in terms of what styles of music we like, and maybe even what instruments we prefer. But music resonates with every single one of us. And I tell young people all the time, you came into this world a musician. And they look at me and they're like, I don't know if I was singing, I was probably screaming and crying. And I said, yes, that may be true, but that's musical. And I say to them, you have a heartbeat. That's musical. That's rhythm. And when you walk down the street, or when you walk to school, or when you walk up a flight of stairs, you don't do that in a very sort of haphazard way. There's a rhythmic purpose to your gait. And so then they're like, oh yeah, so I am musical, I am a musician. And it's a wonderful way to empower um, anyone who wants to engage with this particular art, because you can be musical without even knowing that you are. And music is not just an art form that should be consumed by or participated in by people who are learned or who can read 5 lines in 4 spaces. Music, music is for all of us. And I think the way we are designed as human beings tells us that and shows us that.
So it sounds as if uh, you do a lot. You can do a lot of your work from home. Have you discovered anything during this period when everything's been shut down and we haven't been able to operate as usual? Have you discovered anything that you like to do that you'll continue to do after the pandemic is over?
There are a number of things I've been able to discover about myself, sort of on a professional level. I've discovered that uh, Zoom maybe isn't so bad after all, and that it has afforded me the ability to reach and to connect with people that I otherwise would not have the chance to do or have the time to do. So that's actually been pretty good. I mean, whether it's Zoom or Google Meets or whatever the platform happens to be. So that part has been really fun for me. On a personal note, I've always wanted to explore cooking a little bit more. And because I'm at home now, I just, I search my phone and I can call up just about any recipe. And I'm walking distance from 2 grocery stores in my neighborhood. And so I've been experimenting and trying new recipes that I will continue to use here and there, and that's been lots of fun for me.
So what kind of things do you like to cook?
So I love pork chops, for example. I just love pork chops, and so I've been doing various recipes with pork chops, bone in or boneless. I love seafood, so shrimp is my go-to seafood. So I've been doing some dishes with shrimp, and I want to try some dishes with chicken, but that is actually one bird that I am afraid of cooking. I mean, I just don't ever think I can get it right. I mean, I don't think I can fry chicken correctly. I don't think I can bake it correctly. So I'm just going to leave it alone.
Do you listen to music while you cook? Is there any music you go to? I mean, music is so much a part of your professional life.
Mhm.
Is there any music you go to just to relax?
I love all types of music. And so when I'm not listening to classical music for, score study purposes, or if I'm not writing music in sort of my own classical style, or arranging a spiritual, I like to listen to 1960s and 70s Motown soul. You know, I love, Marvin Gaye and Diana Ross and the Supremes and the Temptations, and I think it's because it takes me back to my childhood, and there's just something very comforting about that, that has certainly been helpful to me during this pandemic.
That's wonderful. Joy is something that pops up a lot, when you're when I'm reading about you and your work. Does your music have a certain goal when you're either writing or arranging something? Are you trying to bring out certain elements?
Well, thanks for that question. There are multiple purposes. First and foremost, as an educator, I'm always trying to find ways to educate the performer as well as the audience through the music. But I must admit that I am one of those people that wants to create a memorable experience for the listener and for the performer. So I do want people to feel uplifted, and I want them to feel inspired. And in some ways, I want them to feel better as a result of having experienced the music, perhaps feeling better than they did when they first arrived at rehearsal, or feeling better than they did when they first arrived at the concert hall. Um, And I think that that's just always been a part of my mantra. You know, I want people to experience joy through choral music, and to be uplifted and inspired and feel as though they can they can persevere and move ahead with whatever's next for them.
Do you have any stories about how music has been able to keep people uplifted during this period in your work?
I feel like I've been inspired a lot by my own ensemble. Last semester, we had a piece that was written for us by a woman named, a Temple grad named Suzette Ortiz, who is also a wonderful educator here in the city. And she's a member of the chorus. And she wrote us a piece in Spanish, Es sol brillará otra vez, which means the sun will rise again. And we recorded that piece virtually. And instead of all of us in our little tiny squares singing or sort of lip syncing to the audio recording that we created, we have this wonderful collection of pictures and videos that all of the choir members submitted. And they really sort of helped to amplify this message that the sun indeed will rise again. And that message has stayed with me throughout this pandemic, and it gives me hope that on the horizon we will all be back together again, being able to sing and make music in the same room together. So,
That's great. Well, thanks so much, Rollo. It's so nice to talk to you.
thank you, Susan.